Hello. To start this lesson, I'd like you to think about something that you did 2 years ago. It doesn't need to be anything important, but I'd also like you to think about if you're still doing this thing now. I'd also like you to think about something you did just before you started watching this video. And again, are you still doing this thing now? I hope you can remember these activities. They don't need to be very special or important activities. The key really is to think about connecting the past to the present and how we do this in English. So how can we combine the past and the present, describing activities that are still happening now, or sometimes activities that we finished even though we started some time ago? Now, you could keep things simple. You could use the past simple with the present simple. For example, you could say, I played the guitar and I still play the guitar today. But really, one of the reasons you're here is to make your English a bit more sophisticated, add detail by using more complicated grammar. And generally speaking, one way we can use the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous is to accurately describe past activities that are still happening now or finished very recently. So, let's have a look at the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous. To start with the present perfect simple, subject plus have or has with the past participle, that's the third form of the English verb, plus an object, and often we would use a simple time phrase. For example, I've studied English for 6 years, or I've swum today. Now the present perfect continuous looks a little bit different. There are some slight changes that you need to pay attention to. Subject, again, we've got have or has, with been this time, and we always have been, followed by an ing form of the verb, the continuous verb, with object and time phrase. For example, I've been studying English for 6 years, or I've been swimming today. So, what's the difference in these two forms? Well, if we look at two sentences together, I've studied English for 6 years, compared to I've been studying English for 6 years. Well, somebody who says I've studied English for 6 years is possibly describing something that has finished. Their studies have completed. They're not continuing anymore with the studying of English. Whereas, I've been studying English for 6 years, well, we've got more emphasis on the duration, specifically 6 years' time. Also, this person is possibly still studying English, because when we use the present perfect continuous, the activity that started in the past is brought right up to now and possibly still happening into the future. So, I've swum today versus I've been swimming today. Again, this time the difference isn't so great. If we use the present perfect simple, we're describing an action that completed before. So we could use I've swum today when we're talking to somebody in the evening about something that we did that morning. Whereas I've been swimming today describes somebody who is maybe standing outside a swimming pool. Maybe they're still wet. They have just finished swimming. I've watched that TV series versus I've been watching that TV series. Again, the difference here is quite strong. I've watched that TV series, meaning it's completed for me. I've seen all the episodes and I don't need to watch any more. Whereas, I've been watching that TV series, we're in the process. We're using the continuous verb to describe an activity that is still happening now. There are still more episodes for us to watch. So, we haven't finished this activity, so that's why we've used the present perfect continuous here. Sometimes there are areas where you need to be careful when you're choosing the verbs to use, when you're choosing present perfect simple or present perfect continuous. And this area is connected to the verb. And specifically, is the verb a stative verb or an active verb? For example, I've known him for years. What we cannot say is I've been knowing him for years, because know is a state verb, so we can't use it continuously. Even if we want to add duration or emphasis to the time we've known somebody, we still just have to use present perfect simple, because that's the rule. In the same way, I've understood what you've told me, not I've been understanding what you've told me, for the same reason. Understand is a state verb, so we can't use a continuous form, and therefore we can't use the present perfect continuous with these verbs. Similarly, we can use the present perfect continuous and the present perfect simple in question forms. For example, how long have you been waiting for her? How long have they been dancing in there? And as you can see here, when we've got how long, we would often actually use the present perfect continuous, not the present perfect simple, because what we're asking for is information about the process, the duration of the activity. Have they been drinking for a long time? So again, we've used the present perfect continuous because we're asking for information about the length of time and the duration and the process of the activity. So in this case, present perfect continuous is more appropriate. What have they been making? As in, they haven't finished making this thing, so what have they been doing? How is the process? I want to know more about the process. Has he been working for a long time? So again, we're asking this question because we're interested in the length of time, the duration of the activity, whereas the present perfect simple would ask us about more completed tasks. So in this way, that's why we've used the present perfect continuous in these questions. So far, we've looked at the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous, and how they're different and how they work and describe different activities in different ways. We've also looked at state verbs and active verbs, and how you can't use state verbs in the present perfect continuous. And we've also looked at the different ways we can ask questions using the present perfect continuous and how they're different from present perfect simple questions. Now I'd like you to take the exercises that followed this lesson to check that you've understood this lesson. Good luck.